This is Duke. When I found him, broken on that sun-baked patch of lonely highway, his life wasn't just fading, it was a single flickering match in a hurricane. This severely neglected dog, hit hard, needed more than a rescuer. He needed a champion. I knew right then this was the hardest fight the Willow Creek Animal Sanctuary had ever faced. We rushed him straight back to the sanctuary. His injuries were catastrophic. Multiple shattered bones in his hind legs, a crushing blow to his chest, and an infection festering beneath the most wretched case of mange I'd ever laid eyes on. He was a noble boy, a strong mix of something powerful, yet his body had been reduced to nothing but pain. Duke didn't cry out. He didn't growl. He just stared, that quiet, empty look of a soul who had given up the ghost long ago. The first hour wasn't about surgery, it was about stabilization. His vital signs were plummeting. His blood pressure was dangerously low. "Hold on, Duke," I kept whispering. "Just hold on for Dr. Robert." We worked through the night, me and my team. Every suture, every IV drip was a tiny, desperate prayer. This wasn't about saving a dog. It was about proving that kindness is stronger than cruelty. Around 4 a.m., we finally stabilized him. He was alive, but just barely. We had won the first battle, but the war for his body and his soul had just begun. Keep watching. The first victory was nearly the last. The real battle was just around the corner. The next few weeks were a brutal routine. Pin after pin went into those shattered legs. The mangled skin was peeled away, revealing fresh, raw wounds underneath. He had the best medical care money could buy, but healing this kind of trauma takes more than medicine. It takes will. Duke was compliant but distant. He'd let us do the work, the painful, agonizing physical therapy sessions to try and coax those broken nerves back to life. But there was no spark, no joy, no thank you. We knew he was fighting for us, for the food, for the warmth, but not for himself. Then the true peril struck, not the highway, but something far more insidious, a virulent infection deep inside the bone, a consequence of his earlier neglect. It was the lion in the tall grass we hadn't seen coming. One evening, his temperature spiked, alarmingly high. He went rigid, trembling. The infection was raging, threatening to take him faster than the truck ever could. The choice was stark: risk an emergency surgery he was far too weak to endure, or watch the light fade forever. I called a specialist. "We have to go back in," I said. It was a Hail Mary pass. I didn't leave his side for 48 hours. I talked to him constantly, telling him stories of the green grass he would run on, the loving home that was waiting. I told him about second chances. Finally, the fever broke. He had survived the second surgery. He was weak, exhausted, but alive. Lying there hooked up to a dozen machines, his sheer guts and grit stunned me. He endured the worst of it and clawed his way back. We saved his life again. We saved his body, but his heart was still locked away. The next step was the hardest: finding out what truly broke him. Duke's physical wounds were slowly beginning to close, but his emotional cage remained shut. We'd seen deep scars on his body from the impact, but as the mange peeled away, we began to see the older scars. Scars that weren't from the road. Scars that told a different, much crueler story. His back, his flanks, they bore the telltale signs of repeated injury. This wasn't just a stray that got hit. This was a noble dog who had been deliberately abused and then left for dead. The highway was just the final insult to an already tormented life. The realization hit me like a physical blow. The reason his spirit was so broken was because humans had failed him, again and again. This knowledge changed everything. We shifted our focus from simply fixing the legs to rebuilding trust. For weeks, I did nothing but sit by his kennel, reading the newspaper, occasionally offering a single piece of cheese. No demands, no therapy, just quiet, consistent presence. We used classical music in the kennels, soft, calming melodies that seemed to soothe his deep-seated anxiety. One rainy afternoon, I was reading an old article about the importance of community support for veterans, a topic near and dear to my heart and the values of Willow Creek. I sighed, setting the paper down. Suddenly, Duke shifted. He painfully lifted his head. He looked straight into my eyes for the first time, not the empty stare, but a look of genuine acknowledgement. Then ever so slowly, with immense effort, he stretched his massive head forward and nudged the newspaper I had just set down. It was such a tiny, understated gesture. It wasn't about the food or the pain medication. It was about connection. It was an act of pure, unadulterated, vulnerable trust. He was asking me to read more. He was asking me to stay. That evening, while cleaning his blankets, my assistant found a small, worn-out tennis ball hidden deep beneath his bedding. It was his only possession. I brought it to him. Duke didn't play with it. He just rested his chin on it and sighed, a sound of deep, profound relief. It wasn't the ball he was hiding. It was his last scrap of normal life, and he was finally trusting us enough not to take it away. That night, for the first time since he arrived, Duke slept deeply, and I knew the veteran rescuer had finally reached the heart of the neglected dog. The spiritual war was over. The fight for his second chance was truly on. If you're inspired by Duke's story of resilience, you need to see what happens next. The doctors told us he might never walk again. They were wrong. With his heart now engaged, Duke's body began to follow. We started the intense work of rebuilding muscle. It was painful, frustrating, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. But now he was working with us. He was determined. Subplot, community support. The story of Duke had gone viral within our local small-town community. Mrs. Johnson, a kind soul from the local church, started bringing him homemade, bone broth-enriched meals. A retired carpenter volunteered to build him a custom brace. This wasn't just my fight. It was the whole community claiming Duke as their own. This kind of American grit, people pulling together for the vulnerable, it was beautiful to witness. The doctors had given us a grim prognosis. They said full mobility was a pipe dream. They said he would need a special cart for life. But Duke had other plans. One crisp autumn morning, we took him out into the little enclosed yard. I unclipped his support sling, the one he had relied on for months. I stepped back, holding my breath. He stood there wobbling, his massive body testing the ground beneath him. And then he took one slow, deliberate step. Then a second, then a third. It wasn't elegant, it was clumsy, but it was independent. "Oh, look at that! Look at that, you handsome soldier!" I broke down right there. The whole sanctuary team cheered. It wasn't just a dog walking, it was a statement. It was a triumph over cruelty, a testament to the sheer power of the fighting spirit when given a second chance. The community rallied for him to walk, but they didn't know what he was truly capable of. You won't believe the final chapter. In the months that followed, Duke didn't just walk, he began to trot. He started playing. His personality, once buried by pain and fear, finally burst forth. He was goofy, affectionate, and protective of everyone at the sanctuary. He had found his joy. Trigger to climax 5, the final defining moment. The day came when we released him onto the big meadow. He ran. He didn't just run a few steps, he ran laps. His powerful legs, once shattered pieces of bone, carried him across the field with a grace I never thought I'd see. He was strong. He was magnificent. He was Duke, reborn. But the story needed its final touch. Duke needed a forever home. We were looking for a very special couple, seasoned, patient, and living on a quiet piece of land. That's when we met the Millers, a lovely retired couple from a nearby small town. When they came to meet Duke, he was hesitant at first. They sat patiently on the grass. Then Mrs. Miller quietly pulled out a copy of a newspaper, just like the one I had read to him during those darkest days. Duke slowly approached her. He nudged the paper with his nose. Then he did something incredible. He gently placed his big head in her lap and let out a soft, contented sigh. It was the deepest breath he had taken since the day I found him. That was it. That was his choice. Duke left the sanctuary that day. He's home. He spends his days supervising Mr. Miller in the garden and getting gentle neck rubs from Mrs. Miller. He got his second chance, and he's living proof that hope is never a lost cause, and resilience is the most noble trait of all. Duke's journey makes every sacrifice worth it. If his story touched your heart, share your thoughts below. We read every comment. And if you believe in the power of a second chance, please take a look at our playlist right here on screen. There are so many others just like Duke, still waiting for their victory. Thank you for championing the noble spirit of these incredible animals.